About 11 years ago, the two heads of an indie studio called Dennaton Games with the names of Jonathan Soderstrom and Dennis Vedin sat down together and watched the movie Drive starring Ryan Gosling. And just like any normal man out there, they thought, wow, he is just like me. They liked the movie so much that they literally developed an entire video game inspired by Drive. A retro, adrenaline pumping top-down shooter that wasn't afraid to get messy. They pitched their idea to a publisher called Devolver Digital, you know, the same publisher behind Fall Guys, and got a green light, which started Project Hotline Miami. I already covered Hotline Miami in another video in depth, so if you want to dig deeper into this franchise and not ruin the fun, watch that video and then come back here. Or if you don't want to, please still do it because I need money. I'm telling you, back then it was impossible for you to not notice Hotline Miami. It was everywhere. I don't mean just critics. Literally everyone was talking about it. You could literally just be chilling and a man with a rooster mask would pull up and say,
"Hey, do you like hurting other people? Then you should totally play Hotline Miami."
Makes you wonder, what was this game even about? Why won't people shut up about it? How can no one hate Hotline Miami? I mean, you can make a video and say you have created a car that runs with water and people will still tell you to game end yourself. What have these two created that cannot be hated? You know what? Let's just take a look. Worst mistake of your life. You have been playing this for days, but you just can't stop. It's so addictive. It's too good for a premise that's just so simple. In the year 1989, you follow the story of two protagonists, a silent war veteran with major PTSD called Jacket, and a drug addict with a bike who's got more not safe for work art than any of your waifus. You know what, let's just call him Biker. Both of them start receiving strange phone calls asking for different services like babysitter, plumber, or electrician at specific addresses. But in reality, all these phone calls want is for you to put up a bloodshed, and if you refuse, bad things are gonna happen. Hotline Miami reels you in with its violence, fast-paced gameplay with a variety of weapons that can easily develop into combos, all combined with music. Oh, believe me, if you sat behind your monitor and boot up this game, you just didn't want to stop playing. And you didn't have to. The devs left a lot of empty holes in the story to make room for a DLC about the same size as the original game. They pretty much wrote a whole script, then cut out bits of it to sell them separately for some fat stacks. But the future of this franchise didn't exactly play out the way they planned it. As the DLC was developing, the demand for more Hotline Miami was also rising. People were constantly asking Dennaton if there is going to be more Hotline Miami. Dennis and Jonathan didn't have a choice in developing more Hotline Miami. But unlike CD Projekt Red, Dennaton coped better with bullying and strategically upgraded the DLC to a whole new sequel. Jonathan explains that it was really confusing and messy to add new assets to the game maker project of an already finished product, and Dennis felt like the graphics needed a bit of a rework. So they both agreed to start a new project instead of modifying the original game. They scaled it up to the point that their game maker ran out of memory. So they were pretty much playtesting with 10 FPS, which is a whole 3 FPS more than the average frames I get playing Cyberpunk. Even though Wrong Number was now an actual game, just by simply playing it, you would eventually realize that at some point this was just a DLC, because Hotline Miami 2 feels like it takes place around the first game, and the original is the center. All of this new content would have been enough, but they even went an extra mile and added a new feature called the level editor. You can design an entire game with cutscenes using Hotline Miami's assets and mechanics. People have made literal masterpieces with the level editor, like the Hunter or Cold War series. Honestly, they are so good that they deserve their own video. All of this new content was released in one big package in March 10th, 2015 under the name of Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number.
Section 1. The Foundation of Wrong Number.
If you were expecting the sequel to be another big break in the video game industry, you should hold your horses. Because Hotline Miami 2 did not turn out the way the community expected. Sure, the premise was still there. Hotline Miami 2 is also a bloody top-down shooter with kick-ass music, but the game didn't play out like the original at all. It actually felt like that the sequel kept punishing you for trying to play it like the original. The levels became a lot larger, so much that you can't even see most most of the level with free camera. Let's play a little game together. What do we get if we combine enemies you can't see with guns? Getting shot from off screen. The amount of times you're gonna die from the enemies you can't see is a lot more than the times you actually die fighting. So you can't just go in there trying to improvise every encounter like the original. You have to carefully plan your every step.
Actually, if you get your hands on a gun, you can shoot them before they shoot you.
That's a nice argument, but good luck trying to hit anything 10 meters away from you. Denaton decreased the accuracy in wrong numbers so much that you're gonna miss half your shots. I actually think I hit my enemies more in Rainbow Six Siege than in wrong number.
Sounds like skill issue to me. So what if it's difficult? You can always choose a mask that fits the level layout with the items and turn the tables.
No, you can't. Wrong number introduces a bunch of new characters that all like to play by their own rules. You may think, I can really use lethal doors for this level, but your character says, how about a pistol instead? And you have no choice but to play the level the way they want. All this while trying to solve a non-chronological storyline filled with dialogues that don't make any fucking sense. Seriously, it felt like this game just wanted to piss you off. The change in gameplay formula sliced the community in two pieces. A group of players actually kind of liked the change. They thought it made the game a lot more practical, while also bringing some new mechanics to the table, even if those mechanics made the game a lot harder than the original. Another group did not let it slide. They thought Hotline Miami 1 was peak gaming, and it was a sin to even slightly change it. So they made sure that the devs got their message, because they sent them so many hate mails that Denaton was horrified. They were just looking at their door expecting someone to come kick it down and finish them any day. But what if me, an intellectual with an above average IQ, told you that both sides are kind of wrong?
Section 2. The methodology of wrong number.
Hotline Miami's gameplay was designed to focus on two aspects: planning and improvisation. You were supposed to scout the area around you and come up with a plan on how to clear the level before going in, and only try to improvise when things didn't go according to that plan. The problem is, literally no one played the game like they were supposed to. Since the level designs were way too simple and most of the enemies had melee weapons, people would just run inside and try to end everyone without relying on a strategy, but instead hope that the level would play out in their favor, with the AI constantly being as stupid as I am in Fortnite. Or if that didn't work, they can just hope that the weapon RNG of the game plays in their favor. So it was all just improvising, and people got through the game without even knowing they were supposed to do planning. Denaton took a look at their community and thought, did I just catch you having fun? So for the sequel, they came up with the solution to force the players to play the game like they were supposed to by taking away the players' control over the game. They made the levels a lot wider and more complex to weaken the player's grip on layout, and filled them with a lot of more armed enemies than the original levels, so that you'd always be on guard expecting to get hit from enemies you can't even see, all while trying to adapt to your character's playstyle, which keeps changing to stop you from getting used to it. After beating the game, you unlock the hard mode. Oh my god, all of these difficulty layers get a million times harder to deal with on hard mode. The levels become even more complex with more windows and rooms. They are also flipped horizontally and vertically just in case you memorize their layout from the normal mode. The AI is a lot smarter now. They react instantly to any noise and have dead accurate aim. Using guns gets a lot harder. You can't lock on enemies anymore, so you're gonna miss most of your shots, and just to piss you off a little more, every time you pick up a gun, it loses 65% of its ammo. Yes, you can literally empty your clip without even shooting a single bullet, but by picking up and throwing your gun a few times. I feel like this last one was a bit personal because it doesn't make any sense. You may not believe it, but hard mode was originally supposed to be the only mode of the game, but the publishers literally called up Denaton to tell them that it's way too hard. Then Jonathan realized that even he can finish the hard mode of his own game, so they added a normal mode by making the hard mode easier. All of these added difficulty layers now forced you to do planning. Fuck democracy. You don't have free will anymore. You can either do planning or keep dying and then complain on the forums about how shit the game is, only only to be told to get good. So technically Hotline Miami 2's gameplay isn't new, it's just what Hotline Miami 1 was supposed to be, which is not fun, and the devs know it. You're not gonna enjoy your time playing Hotline Miami 2 because it's a game that engages with your attention span constantly. You can't just play it by sitting back and pressing a single key. Playing Hotline Miami 2 is more like an abusive relationship. It keeps hitting you in the face, but you're not gonna stop playing because this game has a super weapon called story that makes you want to play the game for one more chapter. Your back may be breaking from the pain, but you're not gonna quit.
Don't you want to know where this story will take you?
Section 3. Member Participation Policies.
Hotline Miami 2's story actually has a theme unlike the original. It uses the aesthetic of a VCR player, and all of the levels, or as the game likes to call them, scenes, are in form of VHS tapes cut together and buffered into one tape. If you look closely, you can actually see all of the tapes have the VHS Palace watermark, which is the same VHS rental shop in the original Hotline Miami. Since the story of Wrong Number is non-chronological and following different characters at the same time, the game plays out like a VHS tape jumping between stories by rewinding and forwarding and rewinding and forwarding and
Rewinding and forwarding and rewinding and forwarding and rewinding and forwarding.
For now, let's go back to the very beginning. Our story starts with the opening shot of a slasher movie called Midnight Animal. We take control of a man wearing the Ubri mask from the original game that doesn't seem to like the house owners very much. This is obviously game's tutorial teaching you the basic mechanics.
She's upstairs. Go get her.
Whoever this she is, the pigman is excited to meet her. So much that he literally... Oh, okay, I guess she wasn't that special for him then. Hey, hey!
Cut! Alright, that's a wrap. Good job, people. We'll do a reshoot tomorrow, so try to stay in character. And we're filming the scene where you carry her to your car on Thursday.
This entire tutorial was scripted. The killer is played by the first protagonist of the game called Martin Brown. When journalists went through this prologue in a playtest, they labeled it to be tasteless and only in the game for shock value. It caused so much media backlash that the devs actually added an option to skip sexually violent scenes. If you turn it on, your character just kinda stands there and does nothing. I gotta say this is one hell of an opening for a controversial game.
As for you two, Pigman, well done. But don't be afraid to be rougher. You're supposed to be killing people. Make it look like you really hit them. And you, Blondie, you need to work on your femininity. Act more helpless and scared, you know? More girly. Now go home and get some rest. I'll see you both tomorrow, okay?
First act, called Exposition, starts from 11:47 of night in October 31st, 1991. We're introduced to a group called The Fans, consisting of our new 5 protagonists: Corey with a zebra mask, Tony with a tiger mask, Alex and Ash both with the swan masks, and Mark with a bear mask. Just like their name suggests, these guys are the fans of the original Hotline Miami protagonist, Jacket, and want to be just like him, without even knowing why he committed murders. All the fans know about Jacket is that he wore animal masks and took down criminals. So they also just do the same. They are aware about the phone calls and set up multiple phones, but they never receive any, because 50 Blessings phone service went out of business a long time ago, and tonight they're throwing a lit party.
Man, this party stinks. I f***ing hate these people.
Who invited these morons?
What do you guys think about tonight? You gonna do it?
I don't see why not. I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Weapons are in the car, right?
So we are actually doing this.
Yeah, let's go do it!
So they hop into their vehicle, which is a van they stole from the communication center of Miami, phone home. First scene, called Down Under, is our first actual taste of some Hotline Miami 2 gameplay. In the fan scenes, you get to take control of one of the 5, while the rest just chill in the van waiting for you to finish up, which doesn't make any sense from a storytelling perspective, because they're all actually supposed to be cleaning up the place together. I get that it may have been difficult for Denatan to design friendly AIs to assist you while trying to not ruin the game's difficulty, but they could have at least have the rest of the fans pretend to help. They actually pulled this off in scene 22 Blood Money with a Russian mobster pretending to be helping, but apparently they didn't bother with the fans. Each of the 5 has a special ability. Corey with the zebra mask has a roll dodge, which you can use to avoid getting shot. On paper it's pretty useful, and very rarely in gameplay you actually do get to use it effectively. But you most likely won't ever come across an encounter that you can legit just stop and think, if I roll dodge back in approximately 0.5 seconds and move to the side, I will be able to dodge the incoming bullet and take... Yeah, it's so situational that I had to get myself in a situation that calls for it just to see what it's even supposed to do. So Corey pretty much plays out like the default Richard mask in the original Hotline Miami, but with an extra roll dodge that might save you. C tier. Tony with the tiger mask has killing punches, so if you punch someone, you will instantly cap them instead of stunning them. Tony is actually one of the few masks that returns from the original game, but apparently Denaton thought that he was overpowered, so they nerfed him. You can have those crisp punches, but this time you can't pick any other weapon. I actually think Tony is pretty balanced now, because most of the time you can easily bait the enemies to come to you and punch them, so if you practice enough you can get used to him pretty fast. But since the scenes are way too big, sometimes you're gonna get shot from off screen without any way of defending yourself. B tier. Alex and Ash with the swan masks have a pretty interesting playstyle. At some point during the development of Hotline Miami, Denaton had the idea of a multiplayer mode, which they scrapped, but they carried over the concept to these 2 swans. Dennis Vedin explains that they chose swan masks because according to legends, when swans mate, they never get separated. Aw, Dennis, that was really clever. Except these 2 are siblings, not partners. Are you into Alabama stuff, Dennis? You primarily control Alex, who has a chainsaw glued to her hand, and Ash follows you around using long-range guns. He starts off with a pistol holding a 15-bullet mag, but if he runs out of ammo, he'll pick up the closest gun. You know, I actually thought Ash, the man, was the swan with the chainsaw, while Alex, the girl, stayed behind. Hey, don't blame me, this game always portrays females as weak and girly, so a girl holding a chainsaw just caught me off guard. I definitely do not listen to Andrew Tate podcasts. In concept, having a melee weapon and a long-range gun at the same time sounds amazing, but Ash is actually fucking brain dead. He always stands behind you, not on the same position as you. So you're gonna calculate your shots from your own angle, but Ash is gonna shoot from his and miss all the shots. This is gonna be a huge problem in a heated situation, because you're gonna have to position your attacks both from your own and Ash's perspective. B tier. And for the last member of the fans, we have Mark with the bear mask, who is arguably the best fan. Sure, he's kind of fat and has a bigger hitbox compared to the rest of his pals, but he starts off with unique dual machine guns that you can't obtain throughout any of the scenes. They hold 64 bullets in mag and another 64 spare. That's 128 bullets, which is a lot considering it takes a single shot to cap most of the enemies. With the low accuracy of this game, this many bullets gives you a higher chance of actually hitting the target. Denaton apparently thought that all that wasn't enough and had to add even another feature for Mark. I think Denaton has a favorite. You can actually shoot horizontally to both sides. You may be thinking, when is this even gonna come in use? Never! Not even fucking once have I used this feature in my playthrough because it's so situational. You're gonna have to be in a position where you have 2 enemies at your sides, exactly facing each other. Even with this useless feature, Mark is still so much better compared to the rest of the fans. He would be S tier if he wasn't such an easy target because he's fat, so A tier. See kids, that's what being overweight does to you. Start working out. Trust me, it's the best method to cope with life problems. Down Under is a very easy scene. Pretty simple layout of 2 floors with minimum rooms and no windows. Even the enemies are placed far from each other to not overwhelm you. It's like the game slowly letting go of your hands and watching its cute little baby take the first steps. I'd say if your deaths reach 2 digits here, just uninstall, because you're not gonna be able to finish this game. The fans clean up the place, then stop by for some pizza on their way back home. Cause hey, nothing feels better than some pepperoni after sending people to Afterlife. 7:41 of night in October 25th, we're introduced to another protagonist named Manny Pardo, a detective investigating the case of a famous serial killer called the Miami Mutilator. Pardo starts his story while washing his hands in the bathroom of a diner. If you click on the newspaper in the ground, it talks about a court hearing with the accused being a completely silent man whose fans are protesting outside the courthouse. This silent killer is actually Jacket from the first game, who most likely turned himself in after accomplishing his mission.
Leaving already? You don't look too good. Are you okay?
Been a stressful day. You wouldn't believe what they had me doing. I should probably go home and get some sleep.
Alright, you have a nice night.
You too, sweetheart.
And with that, Pardo leaves for another day of honest work. In second scene called Homicide, Pardo comes across a robbery in progress at a clothing store and decides to stop it single-handedly, without even calling for backup. I mean, sure, why not? If Jacket could shoot up an entire police station, this is doable. Manny Pardo has no gameplay modifiers. He doesn't have any pros or cons. He plays out just like the default Richter mask in the original, which makes his gameplay dull. Like, dude, just get this shit out of my face. You had all these masks in the original game and couldn't even carry over one of them to my boy Manny? 0 points for creativity. D tier. Homicide is a bit harder than Down Under. The scene's layout is still nowhere near big, just a little wider with 2 floors, minimum rooms, and again no windows. The enemies are still spaced out as to not overwhelm you, but their placement forces you to come up with some sort of strategy to get through. You can't just jump in and start blasting like you did before. You have to plan your attack, which sets the tone for the rest of the game. You need to learn how to plan your attacks on each scene or you won't get through. Yeah, that shit you pulled off in Down Under won't fly anymore. There's also a neat Easter egg in this scene. If you shoot down these cardboards, you can see that they're characters from another game called Nuclear Throne. After Pardo stops the robbery and everything is safe, the cops finally show up. Nice job, people. You're officially on par with Gotham's police force. Pardo arrives at one of the crime scenes of the Miami Mutilator. The investigators on the scene are trying to make sense of the memos left behind by the killer, saying he's innocent and someone made him do this. But Pardo is more concerned with how the press will cover the crime. His partner shuts him down, telling him that with all this killing, they probably won't even care. He's right. At this point, all Miami citizens do is just go around and kill each other. There's nothing interesting left at the scene for Pardo, but just before he leaves, he needs to deliver one important message.
I was born with thick skin.
He said it! He said it!
8:18 of night in April 25th, 1989, we're introduced to another protagonist named Jake. Jake is a patriotic American who doesn't like Russians very much. I think the Confederate flag made it very clear.
May I please have water?
If you dig around his house, you can find pink sheets of an organization called 50 Blessings that leaves strange messages on his answering machine, ordering him to go over in different locations occupied by Russian mobsters and cap them, just like the 2 protagonists from the original game, Jacket and Biker.
Good day, this is Eric from Miami Auto Repairs. I am calling to tell you that we have finished service.
Hello, who is this? Let me talk to your boss, okay?
Swing by Northwest 12th Avenue, place and pick.
Hey, I'm talking here.
We guarantee you the best service in town.
Don't you hang up on me, damn it. Show me some goddamn respect.
Jake hops on his car that he's too fat for and takes off to the discussed location to carry out the hit. In third scene called Hard News, Jake tries to overtake an office building occupied by Russian mobsters. Jake's gameplay style is actually very interesting. Obviously his biggest downside is this guy is by default very fat, so he's got a bigger hitbox compared to the default size protagonists, which applies some negative points to his scenes. But on the plus side, he has 3 different snake masks to make up for it. First mask, obviously called Jake, gives him lethal throws. So if you throw your weapon, you will cap the enemies instead of stunning them. After Tony, Jake is the second playable returning mask from the original game. But unlike Tony, he wasn't nerfed. There's really no downside to using the Jake mask since it only gives you a perk, it doesn't take anything away. And there isn't any situation where lethal throws are not useful. A tier. The second mask, called Rouven, gives him a nail gun with 20 nails and pretty high accuracy. Starting the scene with a decent gun is good, but I just can't see a gun as a special ability, because it is an obtainable object with limited use, so your special ability is just gonna run out in the middle of the scene. Compare this to the Jake mask that gives you lethal throws for the whole scene, and you can see how worse it is.
But you said Mark's double machine guns are pretty useful, so you're actually contradicting yourself.
Not really. You see, with Mark, you had a unique type of gun that you couldn't get anywhere else, and it was so powerful. But this nail gun isn't special. It just looks like it is. Sure, appearance-wise, it is unique. You can't get a nail gun throughout any of the scenes, but this nail gun functions just like a pistol. It's not unique and doesn't add a layer to gameplay. You don't need to have this gun from the start. You can just get something similar to it 3 seconds into the scene. So a gun that was reskinned just to look special doesn't do it for me. B tier. Ah, my favorite, Dallas mask. Dallas is very similar to Tony. The game gives you killing punches and takes away your ability to pick up weapons. But Dallas actually has a feature that Tony didn't have. If you right click, Jake pulls out a fucking nunchuck and goes on a rampage, killing whatever gets close to him. It doesn't even have a cooldown. Once he stops, you can just reactivate it instantly. I was going to rank Dallas on A tier, right above Tony, but like I said, Jake is easier to get shot because of that big belly. Tony may not have a nunchuck, but he can evade bullets easier. So I guess Dallas and Tony are on par. B tier. I can summarize hard news in one word. Windows! Windows everywhere! This scene is a double-edged sword as long as you have a long-range gun. The enemies have way too many angles to shoot, but so do you. You just have to be fast enough to spot them first. If you don't want to go insane, please just don't use Dallas on this scene. Without any long-range attacks, this scene is just a pain in the ass. Once all the Russians are dead, your next objective is to go back to your car and bail. But there's actually a little prize you can collect before wrapping up. If you visit the management office of the building, you can find a briefcase full of money on the table of the manager. If you collect the briefcase, Jake will upgrade his garbage car to a monster truck. How more American can you get? Jake getting a new car doesn't really change the flow of the story, but it's a cool little detail. He stops by a Russian tattoo parlor to get a Dixie tattoo on his shoulder, but their schedule is filled for days. It's okay. Jake is very understanding and gives them some lovely compliments before leaving. I'm sorry.
I'd like to welcome our next guest on the show. Famous from critically acclaimed movies such as Blue Ocean, The Calm, and The Land of the Trees. Here's Martin Brown. Hi Martin, how are you?
I'm good.
Now, your latest film is a bit of a step in a new direction for you. A lot of people are surprised by this. Some are even calling you a sellout. What is your response to that?
A sellout, huh? How do you mean?
Well, some are saying that Midnight Animal is just another slasher flick.
That's not how I see it. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Kill kids, strangle them, beat people's heads in, rip their eyes out. Just listen to them scream, see them die in agony. I finally get to do that now.
Okay.
Don't look at me like that.
What?
I see. This is all a dream, right?
What do you mean?
All of this, it's just a dream, right?
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, pause.
You think this is a dream? Well then, maybe it's time to wake up. Who are you? Who am I? I'm not the one being interviewed here, am I? I think I should be the one asking the questions. This movie you are making, you know how it ends? I believe there's a pretty big twist at the end. I doubt you'll like it. In fact, I don't think anyone will. Maybe you ought to get out before it's too late. I don't think so. You really enjoy hurting other people, don't you? It's just a film. Just a film, huh? That's one way to look at it.
You must have a lot of questions, and honestly, I don't blame you. This is one of the very rare instances that the game transitions from one storyline to another without cutting out and showing the date first. It just kind of starts without any intro. We cut to a crowd cheering in the Ellen show. Look, you wanted to add a talk show host in real life to the game, and out of every option, you chose Ellen. You know what? It doesn't matter. We are here for our boy Martin Brown, who's slowly losing fame. Tonight, he was supposed to be interviewed about his recent acting roles, but nothing went as planned, and Martin actually got to meet Richard from the original Hotline Miami. You know Richard, every time he pops up, he just has to say some cryptic shit then disappear. I don't get it, man. Why don't you just say what you wanna say? We cut to Martin passed out in his house with a woman in the the bathroom that appears worried. She checks around to make sure Martin is asleep and runs away. Martin wakes up in the middle of the night by the sound of police knocking on his door when his phone starts ringing.
Looks like the police is here. The girl must have told on you. You better go obediently. They'll take you to her. That's what you want, isn't it?
Martin listens to the voice behind the call and turns himself in. Fourth scene, called Final Cut, starts in the middle of the interrogation. Martin keeps saying the phone is ringing, but apparently no one else can hear this imaginary phone.
You know what needs to be done. He's not even looking. It's like he wants you to kill him.
Technically, this scene isn't the first time we play as Martin because of the tutorial, but it's the first time we actually fight AI that hits back. And I gotta say, Martin's gameplay is just lame. He wears the third returning mask from the original game called Ubri. Ubri used to add more guns to the level, and I can't tell if the mask still does give you more guns in this game too, because I can't play the level without it. So if the mask doesn't have a visible effect, we can say just like Pardo, Martin also has no gameplay modifiers, and plays like the default Richard mask in the original game. And I was gonna rank him D tier next to Pardo, but Martin is actually even worse than Pardo, and I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to guess why. Okay, time's up. It's because of his bigger hitbox. His big belly makes him rank even below Manny Pardo, so E tier. Final Cut is a really short scene. The first stage doesn't even count because there's only one police officer that doesn't even have a gun. So this scene is actually just 2 floors, not 3. While the layout is pretty balanced, the game throws in a new challenge. You have to beat the first boss fight, an officer dual wielding revolvers. Whenever you stun him, you have a very short window for execution. If you miss it, he'll just get back up. He's actually pretty easy to beat, but for the first boss fight of the game, I'd say it's good enough. The officer drops a set of keys for the waiting room that you need to get the girl. Martin unlocks the room and tries to grab the girl, but the girl herself takes him down. At first, the game treats this like another death during gameplay and asks you to restart. But if you do, it actually cuts to a film set revealing that this whole scene was nothing but part of the Midnight Animal, the same movie we played in back in the tutorial, which we can now piece together to actually be a retelling of Jacket's story. You see, back in the early days of Hotline Miami, people came up with the theory that Jacket's relationship with the girlfriend wasn't consensual, and Jacket didn't rescue the girl, but instead kidnapped her. Denaton expanded this concept in the sequel. We know for a fact that after Jacket took down the Russian mob, he was either caught or turned himself in. While in custody, he confessed to everything. However, due to the lack of substantial evidence, his story wasn't believable. Therefore, the public never figured out what really happened to Jacket in the original Hotline Miami. Within the world of the game, this spawned a perfect opportunity for the media to make profit. So they told Jacket's story as the tale of a psychopath going around murdering innocent people because of imaginary phone calls, all while having a non-consensual relationship with the girl. And within the real world, Denaton dismissed the idea of Jacket kidnapping the girl by portraying it as fiction. But wait a minute, if everything was just a movie, then Martin shouldn't really be dead, right? Apparently, the bullets in the gun were supposed to be replaced by blanks, but the set designers, they kinda overlooked that, which led to the end of Martin Brown. I gotta say, he had a pretty short runtime. He got a tutorial section and a scene that I finished in less than 5 minutes. I wish I could say I wanted to see more of him, but with that terrible gameplay, it's better that you stay dead, Martin. Second act, called Rising, starts from 4:56 of noon in November 5th, 1991. We're witnessing Jacket's case in one of Miami courtrooms. The records of the court mention some phone calls ordering the hits to the murderer, despite the fact that the answering machine of the defendant was empty. And apparently, those calls trace back to the old nightclub called the Golden Truck Stop. After the session is done, you take control of another one of the protagonists called Avon Wright, a journalist doing research to write his book about about the 1989 killings in Miami. The same year, the story of Jacket and Biker from the original game took place. A1 Wright is actually the name of a real-life writer. You probably never heard of his work, because I doubt any of my viewers actually have time to read books. Nah, we're just too cool for that. But you may have watched the Generation Kill series by HBO, which was actually based on A1 Wright's book with the same name. There's no confirmation about this character being based on the real-life journalist, but the similarities are there. Within the game world, none of A1's books so far have been a success, but he's really passionate about this one, despite how his research keeps hitting dead ends. And after this court session, he has pretty much run out of resources. So he calls in some favors that your friendly neighborhood cop Manny Pardo owes him.
What do you want, Evan? I'm in the middle of something here.
Hi Manny, I'm at the courthouse doing research on that masked maniac.
What's that got to do with me?
Well, they mentioned the Golden Truck Stop, something about mob connections.
So?
I was wondering if you know anyone there that I can talk to.
That's privileged information. You know I can't talk about things like that. Look, I'm really busy here.
Don't be like that now. You owe me one, remember?
Fine. Go to Northwest 37th Avenue. Ask for Petrov and tell him I sent you. Can't promise you'll talk, but it's the only name I've got. Don't call me at work again, okay? No more favors.
On your way outside, you can actually see the fans protesting for Jacket. The biker can also be spotted standing idle. I don't think he's there to support Jacket though, since, you know, he beat the shit out of him. It's safe to say that this is the same court session the newspaper in Pardo's campaign was talking about. Unlike the rest of the protagonists so far, A1 doesn't have his own car and instead takes a cab. This is because at the time, A1 is financially struggling, to the point that his upcoming book is his only chance to make a stable income. You're broke! In 5th scene, called First Trial, A1 pulls up to the Golden Truck Stop to meet Petrov, but the bouncer won't let him in, so A1 kind of loses his shit. He instantly regrets getting angry and runs inside to get some help, but the mobsters aren't willing to listen. A1 has the most interesting playstyle out of every protagonist. In the beginning, he's always a pacifist and doesn't want to kill anyone. If you pick up any guns or lethal melee weapons, he will just disarm them. So you can only use non-lethal melee weapons like the baseball bat or metal pipe that will only injure the enemies. But there's an interesting twist. You can actually perform lethal executions using either your fists or non-lethal melee weapons. If you pull this off twice, A1 turns into an alpha male and becomes lethal like the rest of the protagonists. I know it sounds really easy on paper, you perform a lot of executions without even paying any attention throughout the game, so what's two more, huh? Wrong! A1's executions take a lot longer to finish than any other protagonist, so you're gonna have to corner an enemy alone to have the time window for pulling one, which is a pain in the ass because of the enemies being so fucking close to each other. A1 killing or not changes nothing in the story, but this doesn't take away from how creative and unique his playstyle is. You will always have to choose between either becoming limited and trying to finish the scene as a pacifist, or take a risk on losing your progress to make the scene easier. That's an S tier in my book. First Trial in overall is a very balanced scene. It has 2 floors with just enough amounts of rooms and windows to make it possible for both pacifist and violent A1 to get through. A1 learns that the masked killers were most likely not vigilantes, since they were way too organized. Petrov even caught a couple of them and tried to make them talk, but they didn't break. It's pretty funny how after the conversation is done, the mobsters just kind of stare at you. Must be really fun looking at someone who just killed 20 of your friends. A1 wasn't exactly expecting his interview to end up with brains on the carpet, so he goes on to confront Pardo about sending him into a death trap.
What a day.
What? Did something happen?
No, well, yeah. That guy Petrov, he wouldn't see me. Almost got beaten up just trying to get in.
Ha! You actually went there? Didn't figure you would.
Man, sometimes I wonder why I hang out with you. When did you become such a douchebag?
Well, I did tell you to write about the Miami mutilator instead, didn't I? A much more sophisticated case, really. And you wouldn't have to talk to the mob. People would have forgotten about those vigilantes by the time your book's out. Besides, I bought you beer, right? And you didn't really get hurt, did you? Let's call it even, huh?
Thanks for the beer and all, but you still owe me one.
Alright. Don't forget I'm putting my job on the line. If anyone finds out I'm giving you leads, it'll be it for me.
You'll be fired for incompetence or misconduct before that happens. I'm surprised they haven't fired you already. I'm tired. Let's get out of here, okay?
Yeah, I should get some sleep too. You wanna ride?
I'll take my chances on the bus.
10:11 of night in December 2nd, 1991, we cut back to the fans looking for some more praise. Ash mentions that his friend Jack told him about his sister spending too much time with some junkies and lowlives in a place down at Northwest 184th Street. Jack wants them to bring his sister back home and teach her new friends a lesson. But don't even think for a second that these guys are doing a good deed. They don't give a shit about the girl. They just want to kill some people.
Oh, wow! That is relatable!
16, called Moving Up, brings back dogs from the original game. They will charge at you with the speed of light if they even see a pixel of your body. And to make it even worse, you can't stun them, you can just kill them. This scene is actually really easy. It's got 3 floors and none of them is a challenge at all. There's only 3 enemies on the first stage, so I'm being generous by even counting it as a floor. The second stage has way too many rooms separating the enemies, so you can just corner each of your targets alone. The third stage looks a little too wide, but don't let it scare you. All it takes is some baiting to get all of these dumbasses running towards you. I actually finished up Moving Up with Tony, so I didn't even need a weapon to get through it. You'll find Jack's sister shitting herself in a room after she just witnessed you commit mass genocide. She refuses to go back with the fans because they killed all quote-unquote her friends. Really, girl? There was about 40 men and 1 woman in this whole building. I can't think of a single positive scenario that can explain that. If you try to get closer to her, you will get shot. So for those of you who think you can fix her, it's time to let her be the way she wants. Because we can't change people. We can only accept them as they are. Humans are a whole that share themselves only partially with each other. If we try to change a part of them, their whole begins to crumble. Eventually, they will grow to— Why does this guy keep yapping? On their way back, the van breaks down and everyone blames Tony for not getting it fixed before. This game really doesn't like Tony. Ash mentions a friend of his called Andy down by the chop shop that owes him a favor, so he'll get the van fixed no charge. Ash gets the van running for now and the fans head back home. Night 13 of night in November 1st, 1991, we're introduced to an entire new storyline about the Russian mob with 2 new characters. One of them is currently the Don of the family, called the Son, because he is the son of the Russian Don Jack had killed in the original game. And the second one, who we control for now, is called the Henchman. He's pretty much one of the many Russian mobsters you kill throughout both games without giving it any thought, but this one has a close connection with the Son.
What's the matter? You look a little nervous.
Well, boss.
Something you need to say? Just say it.
Look, we've known each other for a long time now, boss. You've done a lot for me.
No need to be polite. Cut to the point.
Alright, I want out. I'm getting too old for this. I'm getting too soft.
Too soft? Too soft for what?
Shooting people, putting my ass on the line. I've had a feeling I'm not gonna last much longer for a while now. Been having these dreams.
The dreams, huh? You want out? You're out. But first, you have to take care of some business for me, okay?
What business?
Nothing big. A chop shop downtown, Northwest 32nd Avenue. They're with the Colombians now. Won't give us our cut no more. Don't worry, they're just hoodlums. Nothing you can't handle.
And then I'm out?
Yes, though you're free to come back anytime you change your mind. As a parting gift, grab a sample of our new product here. Might spice up this new boring lifestyle you've chosen.
There's a bug about those pills that pisses me off. You see, this game tells you that your objective is to pick them up, but you don't actually have to. The game doesn't give 2 shits if you leave those pills. This bug isn't even anything new. You see, in the first game, Jacket would stop by different locations to pick up different items, say a snack or a drink or a VHS tape. But you didn't actually have to pick up anything. You could just leave without those items. I don't really know how Jonathan managed to miss this issue for both games. In 7th scene, called No Mercy, the henchman takes on a bunch of chop shop workers by himself. The henchman's playstyle isn't much to look at. He basically starts the scene with a silenced pistol holding a 12-bullet mag. It's not useless, it's still a long-range gun that doesn't attract enemies, but like I said before, a gun with limited ammo as a special ability is shit. I was originally gonna rank the henchman C tier, since his ability is even worse than Irvin's mask in Jake's storyline, but I noticed unlike Jake, the henchman isn't fat, and he can dodge hits a lot easier, so it's a B tier right next to Irvin. No Mercy is the first annoying scene in the game, mainly because of its window placement. Look, windows in Hotline Miami 2 can be very useful if you utilize them before the AI, but in No Mercy, the windows are intentionally positioned in a way that your enemies will get to use them before you, and it drags on for 3 floors, which keeps pissing you off more and more. You will get through it eventually, but this scene will be walking on your nerves the whole time. The henchman finds a bag filled with money in the chop shop and realizes it's his lucky day. day. Outside the chop shop, he comes across one more of his targets who was just about to clock in. But being tired of all the killings, the henchman spares him and heads back home.
Hi honey, welcome home. I made you dinner, it's in the fridge.
I'll eat it later. I'm not that hungry right now.
Oh, had a rough day?
I'm not sure I quit my job.
You quit your job just like that? And your boss just let you go? I thought you said...
Look, I'm out and that's that. Speaking of which, I've got a surprise for you, but...
What? What is it?
You'll see tomorrow, okay? I'm feeling a bit tired right now. I'm gonna head straight for bed. Are you gonna stay up for a while?
I'm just gonna finish it now. I'll be up in a minute.
The henchman hides the money bag under the bed and goes to sleep. The game then cuts to him driving with his money bag chilling in the backseat of a supercar, which he didn't have at the beginning of the last scene. Suddenly, a familiar face pays him a visit.
Nice car you've got. Where are we going?
I'm going away. Far away. Doesn't matter to me.
Are you sure? Do you even know where you are heading? Without directions, a lot of people wind up going around in circles.
I didn't ask for your opinion.
What if I told you that this road leads to nowhere? Or rather, you are heading for a dead end. That's where you are going. You're closing in on it. Closing in fast. But you already knew that, don't you?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You'll see soon enough. By the way, did you forget to bring your girlfriend?
There we go again, Richard. You and your cryptic bullshit. 9:13 of night in November 22nd, 1991, we start off in the henchman's house, only to find the money bag gone.
Mary! Mary!
Hi honey, I'm so sorry about this. You'd have done the same thing if you were me. Love, Marie.
This makes the henchman hate Maria and join the Hustlers University, eventually opening his own drop-shipping business. Just imagine if that was the case. 8th scene, called Execution, starts with the henchman chilling in his own complex with his personal bodyguards. He's trying to reach Mary, but the operator keeps telling him that he has reached the wrong number. That would have been too easy, but not yet. Not yet. The henchman tries again and again, but can't get a hold of her, when suddenly... the fans show up to trash the place. You may be confused a little about how the fans even managed to find the henchman, because you haven't been listening well, you naughty. The henchman killed all the chop shop workers except for one. When Tony took the van to the chop shop for repairs, this guy told him about where the henchman took off to. The Hotline Miami community assumes this guy is actually Andy, the same friend who owed Ash a favor. Execution is actually Dennis Vedin's personal favorite scene, which doesn't surprise me because this is one of the best scenes in the entire game. It's made of 2 floors with doors and windows that are intentionally structured to keep the flow of your combos going without interruption. It's one of those very rare instances where the game doesn't want you to stop killing. I highly suggest you pick Alex and Ash for Execution because you have enemies both close and far from the entrance of every room. So it would make it a lot easier if you could use close and long range attacks at the same time. With all of the bodyguards dead, the fans corner the henchman alone. He keeps talking about Mary, but honestly, the fans really don't give a shit. Something weird about this section is that unless you pick Tony for the scene, he doesn't show up in this room. I would say this is a bug, but from everything we have seen in this game, no one likes Tony. With or without the tiger, the fans make sure tonight is the end of the henchman. The third act, called Climax, starts a bit unusual. The game makes the biggest jump in location and time by going to 2:42 of noon at March 17th, 1985, all the way in Hawaii. We're introduced to a new protagonist who's actually a character from the original game called Beard. The original Hotline Miami didn't say much about Beard's life to the players. All we really knew about him was that he used to be a close friend to Jacket. In Wrong Number, we learned that Beard was actually a soldier in the war between United States and the Soviet Union. Beard was the leader of a squad called the Ghost Wolves, consisting of 3 members aside from him, starting with Daniels, the fat guy. Here's the thing, throughout most of my playthroughs, I actually thought that Daniels and Jake are the same person, which means that Jake's full name was Jake Daniels, and after war, he started taking on Russian mobsters. It's an interesting theory, but no, these two are not the same person. Then we got Barnes. He's I'm not really sure why he even exists. He doesn't really do much in the story. And a third member that the game doesn't introduce. We don't know who this guy is, he doesn't have a face model, and he never speaks a single word.
I don't know if it's the heat, but I'm feeling a little drunk.
Me too. I'm thinking about heading back to camp.
I'm good for another round or 2. You guys head on back. I'll catch up with you later.
You don't tell me what to do, okay? I'm gonna show you half the drink, you hear me?
Well, I guess we'll see you guys back at camp then. Just remember, we have a job to do tonight, fellas.
A very interesting detail that you can miss very easily is that if you take a look around the bar before leaving, you can actually notice the fans chilling on the counter.
Excuse me guys, you have a second? I'd like to take a picture of you if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Could you send me a copy if I give you my address?
No need, we have a Polaroid. Would you mind stepping out in the sun here for a bit? Alright, good luck out there guys. Thanks for letting me get a shot.
No worries, man. Good luck to you too.
Night arrives and it's time for the Ghost Wolves to take on the job they were discussing in the bar, which is taking over an enemy checkpoint. Beard checks in with the colonel in charge of the squad and prepares for the 9th scene called Ambush. Beard is always solo in his scenes, so I thought that his storyline also has the same problem like the fans, having your allies not do anything when they are supposed to be helping you, but you do get to see them handling some enemies throughout the story, so at least they tried a little bit more with Beard. A unique feature of Beard's scenes is that you get to choose your playstyle variation on intros, not at the beginning of the scene like the rest of the storylines, unless you replay his scenes from the menu and skip the intros. Beard's playstyle is actually the most tactical out of every protagonist. You have a selection of 4 different guns with limited ammo that you have to stick with throughout the entire scene, and a knife that you can use whenever you feel like you should, so it really highlights the planning aspect of the game. I was gonna rank each of these weapons separately, but they don't differ that much from one another. If you're a sniper user, you aren't really that different from a shotgun user. But then there's the 5th weapon, the flamethrower. This is the weapon of gods. You are an unstoppable killing machine with this thing. It's so overpowered, it literally ruins the game. I had to sabotage myself by choosing a weaker gun just so there would be a challenge left, since improvisation is really difficult or even just not possible in Beard's storyline, but the planning is way too good, and the fact that he has to stick to one weapon goes well with his character, since he is a soldier and has trained with a specific arsenal of weapons. I'm gonna rank him A tier. 9th scene called Ambush is really not that hard. It might feel like it is because you're getting used to Beard's gameplay formula. It's got only 3 short stages with acceptable amounts of rooms and windows. Enemies are mostly cramped up so you can bait most of them at once and end them. Believe me, if you replay Ambush after finishing the game, you can't believe you died here even once. Or maybe you will. Maybe you accept how garbage you are in this game. After clearing the checkpoint, Beard checks in with the rest of the Ghost Wolves and heads back to the camp. 10:05 of night in December 9th, 1991 back in Miami, we catch up with the fans that made it in the news now, but they don't really care. Fame wasn't the reason they started killing, it was their obsession with Jacket. Alex mentions that she bought some weed from a bunch of dealers a few days ago, and now she wants some more. This is exactly how I imagine people who smoke weed act like.
Oh no, weed is not addicting. I can quit anytime I want. I just don't want to because it's very good for my health.
Haha, man, shut the f up. In 10th scene called Into the Pit, the fans show up at the dealer's place to find some more weed and kill anyone in their way. You can actually finish this scene in about 7 seconds. It's so short that the fans themselves are disappointed, so they head back into the van and drive off. Haha, only if it was that easy. The scene actually starts under the building in the sewers. Into the Pit is really easy. If you don't count the beginning, it's only got 2 stages with minimum rooms and no windows, so a pretty basic layout. You always know where you might get shot from. The only thing that pissed me off was the amount of dogs. Why the f is there so many dogs in the sewer? You can find a couple of dead bodies dissolving in acid. It honestly sent chills down to my body, thinking how f***ed up the crime life of Miami is. These are all people with families and loved ones that were killed. The fans cap all the dealers, but unfortunately find no weed, so they will have to spend another day not on drugs. How tragic. 10:08 of morning in December 10th, 1991, we take control of Manny Pardo in front of Alex and Ash's house.
Who is it?
It's the police. Open the door.
Just a second. I gotta put on some clothes, okay?
Alex quickly hides her swan outfit and puts on some clothes.
How did you get in here?
The door wasn't locked. I let myself in. I hope you don't mind.
Well, what do you want?
I'm looking for an Ash Davis. This is listed as his last known address.
Well, as you can see, he's not here. I don't know where he is. He doesn't live here anymore. Was there anything else?
Will you tell him to contact Miami PD the next time you see him? You're his sister, aren't you? I can see you got the good genes. You're very pretty.
If there's nothing else, I would like for you to leave.
Manny Pardo can't cope with getting friend-zoned, so he drives off. There are 2 small details in this section that heavily impact the plot and they're so easy to miss. 1, you can see Pardo planting a wallet inside the house, and 2, if you walk up to the trunk of Pardo's car, you can actually find someone tied up. The community thinks this is actually Jack, the guy that asked the fans to rescue his sister. There's no evidence in the game that points to this guy being Jack, and I think the only reason they even count him as Jack is because the community wanted to give this guy a name. Funny thing, when you take control of Alex, you can actually open up Pardo's trunk, but I'm pretty sure this is just a bug. In 11th scene called Dead Ahead, Pardo takes on an entire ship of Colombian mobsters by himself. Sure thing, if Jacket could take over an entire police station, f it, no! It doesn't make any sense! How can one cop take down an entire ship? Even GTA characters couldn't pull this off alone. Excuse me. Yes? Oh, really? Oh, okay. Alright guys, I've been informed that Pardo has thick skin, so everything makes sense now. Dead Ahead is one of the worst parts of this game. It's the longest scene in the entire game with 5 fucking stages. I swear to god, this level really drags out. I had to take a break literally in the middle of the scene. You know, when I was pouring my coffee, I was kind of thinking about how this level is probably why most people hate this game. Like, it's just too difficult for no reason, and it's not even like the final challenge of the game or like the last scene. It's just something very difficult and very long in the middle of the game without any reason. Are you subscribed yet? Could you please subscribe, please? A generic cop shows up and yells at Pardo for taking on the ship alone. But he's not a main character. Who gives a shit about him? Pardo stops by another crime scene of the Miami Mutilator. Everything appears to be typical. Same memos left by the killer, claiming he did not want to do this and he was forced. And Pardo again brings up the press. He thinks that the reason the Miami Mutilator is killing is because he wants attention. There's only one interesting detail in this crime scene. Unlike the previous ones, this time the killer robbed the victim too, because his wallet is apparently missing. 9:29 of night in December 20th, 1991, we cut back to the fans who just received a new package.
Hey guys, just got the new masks we ordered. Pretty cool, eh? How do they feel? You like them?
I think I'm done here. How are you guys doing? I'm moving up to the 2nd floor. See you on the roof.
What? I'm not sure I follow.
All clear on my end, I think. Wait, what was that? I think I just heard something.
What are you guys talking about?
Alright guys, we're on the roof now. How are things going for you guys? Hello? Is anyone there? Guys?
I'll get it. Hey, none of these phones are ringing.
When did you get a cell phone?
I took it from the guy we clocked at the bar. Just charged it up this morning at Dean's place. What should I do? Do I answer?
I don't see any reason not to.
Alright, here goes nothing.
Hi, it's me. I know you wanted out and I respect that, but I just figured I'd give you a call and see if you changed your mind. You wouldn't believe what's been going on the past few weeks. We're calling the shots now. Top of the game. No one can touch us. The new product is in full-scale production. Got a new place, 3 floors up on Northwest 20th Street. Who would have thought, eh? Why don't you swing by and check it out, huh? Hello? Anyone there?
Hey guys, I think I just found us something to do tonight. Let's go right now. I'll tell you all about it in the van.
The fans hop into their van to drive to the new Russian mob HQ to start scene 12 called Death Wish.
Can you open the door already? It's getting pretty late. They might be heading out soon.
It was your idea to scout the place out for 2 hours. I'm working as fast as I can here.
Well, we couldn't barge in. You gotta have a plan, you know? At least now we know where they are.
Just f***ing open this thing, will ya?
Maybe you would like to take over here then. I'm sure you'd get it open in no time. I think I got it now.
Haha, welcome to the coolest scene in the entire game. This whole section is nothing but pure adrenaline. It might seem a little too long with 4 floors, but you keep switching between the fans for each floor, so it keeps refreshing your attention span. The best part about it is that every floor is structured specifically to fit your character's playstyle. Mark's floor is filled with armed enemies, Tony's floor is filled with enemies using melees, Alex and Ash's floor is a combination of both, and Corey's floor... yeah, sorry girl, your ability is just useless no matter where we put it. The fans each clear up their own floor and call it in.
I think I'm done here. How are you guys doing? I'm moving up to the 2nd floor. See you on the roof.
All clear on my end, I think. Wait, what was that? I think I just heard something.
Alex and Ash clear the 4th floor and make it to the roof, only to find out that none of their friends made it yet.
Alright guys, we're on the roof now. How are things going for you guys? Hello? Is anyone there? Guys? They're not answering.
Maybe your walkie-talkie is busted.
I don't think so. It seems to be working fine.
Should we go back and check on them? Ash! What the f*** are you waiting for?
And just like that, the sun finishes the fans. Their story ends so anticlimactically it catches you off guard, and I never saw it coming. But honestly, I should have. The game warned us about what was coming all the way back in the safe house. The fans uttered the exact same lines in the raid when they wore rooster masks. They kept pushing themselves with killing more to become like Jacket. They got tangled up in a game that was much bigger than them. Taking on junkies or drug dealers was one thing, but an entire mob was a lot bigger than what they could chew. The fans played with fire.
And got burned.
After the shootout, the police with Detective Pardo surrounds the sole survivor Tony. He was injured heavily but still alive. You would think that Tony is a great lead for Pardo's investigation, but Pardo doesn't even care about his killings. He's actually more pissed off that the fans made it into the news. So much that he kills Tony to stop them from becoming more famous. When leaving the crime scene, you can spot a dead body that fell from the building. Well, at least now we know Hotline Miami has fall damage. Thank you for your services. Act 4, called Falling, starts off from 3:37 of noon in November 11th, 1991. We got to Avon, who finds a letter from his wife on the dining table.
Good morning, honey. I didn't want to wake you. Took Jimmy to school, left you some breakfast. See you tonight. Love, Sharon.
Avon has managed to get in touch with a woman called Rosa Berg, who is the mother of one of the masked killers, and she's agreed to meet. So Avon catches a train to get to her. In the train, he gets approached by a hobo asking for some change. You know, he could just react like Jacket did when he saw a hobo, but despite his financial struggles, he spares some change. Then suddenly... Richard shows up to taunt him for how much of a disappointment he is. He has failed as a husband and a father. He can't afford to take care of his family since none of his books were successful, and he still refuses to give up on his dream of becoming a writer. Avon has no choice but to make this book work whatever it takes, or he may very well lose his family. My biggest issue with the 13th scene called Subway is that technically this scene shouldn't exist. Miami doesn't have a subway system, it uses Metro, but I'm gonna let it slide because people already bullied Denaton enough. In Subway, Avon has to get through a bunch of gang members that won't let him pass. At the very beginning, I realized if you disarm the AI without any nearby weapons, it would just kind of stand there. This scene was a piece of cake, especially if you turn violent. It's got 3 stages with few rooms, and though it does have windows, all of them are on empty rooms, so they're just for decoration. In the last stage of the Subway, you face the second boss fight of the game. A gang leader that if spots you, won't attack but alarms every other gang member to your location. He's way too easy for a boss fight since he goes down in a single hit, so you can find him early and cap him before others. But it's a nice change in gameplay anyways. After Avon cleans up the subway from gang members, which is something the journalists are supposed to do apparently, he gets on a bus to Rosa's house and finally gets to talk to her.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get the door for you. My legs aren't what they used to be. You are the writer who called earlier, right?
That's right, ma'am. I was hoping you could tell me a bit about your son.
He was the sweetest child. I don't know how he got mixed up in that mess.
I'm sure it must have come as a shock to you.
Yes, well, I noticed that he was behaving differently. He was always a bit of a loner, you see? Suddenly, he was going out to meet old friends. I never knew he had any. I didn't think much of it. A man that age shouldn't be alone all the time. I always felt I was holding him back. He was taking care of me, you see.
Did he tell you anything about what happened?
I only visited him a couple of times when he was in prison. He wouldn't tell me a thing about it. Said it was better if I didn't know.
Do you have any idea what happened to him when he made his escape? Has he been in contact with you?
Well, I can't really talk about that now, can I?
Look, I would really like to talk to him.
Well, if he does call, I could maybe give him your number. The way he can't decide for himself if he'd like to talk to you or not.
That sounds more than fair, thank you. While I'm here, I'd like to ask you if it's okay to have a look around.
Oh, please do. My son's room is upstairs on the left. I've kept it just the way he left it.
Upstairs in the room, you can find military equipment, which could mean that Rosa's son used to serve in the army. On the desk, you can also find a couple of tapes with dates March 10th and March 16th written on them. Originally, players thought that since Hotline Miami 2 was released on March 10th, a DLC pack is supposed to be released on March 16th. But there was no DLC. They never brought it up again, and collecting them changes nothing. So people dug very hard to find out what these dates mean, but they never found anything, and eventually just gave up. I actually do have a theory about those tapes, but if I tell you now, it'll ruin a character reveal, so stick with me through this. You can leave Rosa's house and end the scene, but you would be missing the best Easter egg of the game. At the beginning of the scene, if you click on the phone in Avon's house, you can trigger a hidden message.
You have one new message.
Hello. I saw your ad in the paper. I've got some information you might find interesting. It said $200 for information, right? Well, you better bring it. I'll be at 101 Street all day, sitting in a bar. Just get here before I max out my tab, okay?
With this message triggered, you can now visit that bar before going to Rosa's house. This bar is referred to as the Bar of the Broken Heroes, and you can find every other protagonist you have met so far and even some extra characters here with their torched cars parked outside. You can see the fans taking a break, the son and the henchman having a drink, Jake spending some time alone, Pardo having a moment in the bathroom, Martin Brown reading what I assume to be a movie script, Beard serving drinks, the hobo from the first game in the trash can outside, biker who was the one calling up Avon sitting on the counter, and H.M. Hammerine, the real-life musician. I'm not joking, it's actually him. H.M. Hammerine, also known as The Hammer, is a character in the level editor that doesn't have a story. He was made for the players to come up with their own backstory for him. Cool, I guess. It's kind of random, but that's all there is to it. The bar of the broken heroes is very confusing. To this day, people are still coming up with theories about what is going on here. How can all of these people be at the same place when some of them, like the biker and the son, would be on each other's throat, and some others aren't even alive? Well, I came up with my own theory. Just like the name suggests, this is a place for broken heroes, people who were crushed by the events of their lives, either because of a higher power or their own conscience, to the point that many of them gravitated towards achieving goals that they initially didn't want to, which fits everyone sitting in the bar. Other characters but biker are not physically there, and they only exist metaphorically to show how broken the world the biker lives in is, which Avon doesn't fit in because he isn't broken. But since writing this book is his goal and he's willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish it, he enters that world. At this point, Avon is desperate for any lead, and interviewing biker may just be the answer to all of his questions.
Excuse me, sir, are you the one who left a message on my machine? You said you had some information for me, right?
You're that writer, huh? Did you bring the money?
200, yes. So, what do you have for me?
Right. Was it 2 years ago? You see, I was out of town for a while. Lost track of time. Well, look, I was there, okay? They're Russians. I killed a bunch of them.
In the war, you mean?
The war? No. Right here in Miami. You know, it was before I went to the desert. I was young. It's only been 2 years, huh? I feel a lot older now. The Russians, they were mafia, I think. I killed a bunch. You see, I signed up for this, some patriotic bullshit. And I started getting these weird phone calls, you see.
Phone calls?
That's what I said. You listening or what? A lot of people were getting these calls, I think. I got fed up with it. Wanted out. Tried to figure out who was calling. I think there was something big behind it all. Real big. So I skipped town. Went into hiding out in the desert.
You think there was a conspiracy?
No, man. This thing was real. Not a fucking conspiracy. I've never been scared of anything, but this guy gave me the chills. After that, I just lost it. I lost the will to fight.
Who do you think were making these phone calls?
Beats me. So, are you going to give me my money now or what? I need another drink.
I think you've had enough, to be honest. If you can't give me anything more substantial, I can't pay you, okay?
Not substantial, am I? Well, screw you, pal. I'm risking my life here talking to you. And you're not gonna pay? Get lost, will you? I'm through with you.
This person that spoke to Biker was actually Richard, who eventually caught up to him and questioned his motives, just like he did to the rest of the protagonists. It's honestly really sad what Biker's lifestyle has done to him. He got dragged into 50 Blessings game against his own will, took many lives he didn't want to, got beat up by Jacket that got him a permanent scar, solved the mystery behind the phone calls only to find out that there's nothing he can do about it, left Miami for dessert so that he might find some peace, got confronted by Richard who broke his will to fight, and now became an alcoholic. Cherry on top of the pie is that Biker's info was useful for Avon's research, but Avon's broke ass just couldn't afford to pay him.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
We go all the way to 8:50 of morning in October 25th, 1985 at Hawaii again. The Ghost Falls are just chilling near the beach, talking about what they're gonna do after the war. Barnes says he likes to open up a bar, which Daniels makes fun of because Barnes, I guess. Daniels mentions that he's surprisingly a teacher and he will continue teaching when he gets back. Beard says he just wants to do something that doesn't involve using guns anymore. Maybe he'll open up a convenience store. Beard checks in with the colonel in charge of their mission. The colonel tells Beard that the Ghost Falls will be going home soon, but first they have to accomplish their missions. Today, they'll be ambushing a Russian camp with no backup. The colonel is drinking very heavily, and from his lines, it's obvious that he's very pessimistic about winning this war. I don't know, man. If only one of my soldiers could take over an entire enemy camp alone, I would have a little more faith. In 14th scene called Stronghold, the Ghost Wolves try to take over a very large Russian camp. Stronghold really pushed me to punching my monitor. It's only got 3 stages, which is standard, but they tick all of the annoying boxes. Extremely wide structure, filled with rooms and windows. You won't fucking believe how many times I was shot from off screen without even having the chance to fight back. I'm really tempted to pick up the flamethrower. Believe me, I'm so close to just give in. Beard clears out the Russian camp and after calling it in, leaves to reunite with the Ghost Wolves. In the aftermath, we can see them discussing the upcoming mission, which is supposed to be their last. But for now, it's best for them to rest up, and for us to get back to present. "7:32 of night in June 3rd, 1991, we finally catch on Jake, and he is just as racist as he was.
I don't like Jews, or colored folk, or natives, now that you mention it.
Jake gets a phone call directing him towards 159th Street to clear another Russian mob checkpoint. But first, he decides to pay 50 Blessings a visit. He pulls up to their company and talks to one of their agents. Jake pitches in his new idea to set up a calling system to get patriots to go after Russians and kill them. Well, Jake is only one of the many Americans obeying 50 Blessings, and just like the rest, he also hasn't figured out that it's actually them behind those phone calls. The agent shuts him down and ridiculously insists on 50 Blessings being a peaceful organization, to the point that Jake actually puts the pieces together and figures out that 50 Blessings is the caller. But he promises to keep it to himself, good fella that he is. 15th scene, called Withdrawal, is perfect for Dallas Mask. It's got 3 floors with small structures that makes them easy for you to hit your enemies before they get the chance to shoot. And because of no windows, you always hold your grip on which angles you're exposed from. The first 2 floors have bomb rooms. If you don't know what they are, you must have healthy ears. Basically, if any bullet is shot from or towards a bomb room, it blows up. So it's best that you stick to melees rather than guns anyways. The most interesting part of this level is that there are 2 endings to it that you determine based on how you perform on the 3rd floor. You see, once you reach the 3rd floor, you can no longer restart the level. If you get shot, it triggers the cannon ending. Jake is taken away by mobsters to another building where Petrov, the mobster Avon interviewed before, tries to get Jake to rat on 50 Blessings, just like many other masked killers he tried to break. But Jake is no snitch, so he eats a bullet. Fast forward to 8:18 of night in November 27th, Avon convinces Pardo to get in the evidence locker so that he might find something useful for his book. He inspects Jake's gear to find something useful for his research, but finds nothing. How do we know this is a canon ending? Well, in the 10th chapter of the first game called Hot and Heavy, you can actually find Jake's dead body, which is pretty cool, but the non-canon ending is actually a lot more interesting. If you get through the 3rd floor alive, Jake is picked up by the 50 Blessings agent and taken to a private room. Here you have a very small time window to pick up a floppy disk on the disk before the agent shoots you dead. What? Did you think they were just gonna let Jake go because he promised to keep the secret to himself? See kids, don't be racist, because racist people get killed by bigger racist people. This time, Avon can actually find the floppy disk in Jake's gear and unlocks a bonus scene called The Abyss. In this scene, Avon takes the disk to a flash copy center and extracts all the information, which gives him a bunch of addresses. The first address takes him to an abandoned 50 Blessings headquarters that seems abandoned, but isn't.
You are not supposed to be here. We had a deal.
We're staying here after dark until you leave us be. Wasn't that what you said?
Get the hell out of here now! This is our place, not yours! Don't force us to do something we don't want to.
The place fills up with gang members afterwards. The Abyss is nothing but 3 stages of very wide rooms. You're all set if you can use guns, so it's really hard if you remain pacifist, but really easy if you become violent. Avon fights his way out and leaves as fast as he can. But wait, we're not just gonna gloss over this scene, right? So much happened in the last 5 minutes of gameplay that it's a bit overwhelming. The Abyss is another one of Hotline Miami's mysteries that hasn't been 100% solved to this day, and people are still coming up with theories about out what is actually going on here. Some think that Avon meets a bunch of random gang members playing with animal masks. Others think he met a bunch of older 50 Blessings members who were anticipating an upcoming disaster, so they took shelter here. And just like the bar of the broken heroes, I have my own theory for the abyss. Avon managed to come across all the answers for his book. He found a perfect lead that explains everything. We have an abandoned 50 Blessings headquarters with people wearing animal masks following a cult taking shelter inside of it. It's a perfect symbolism of how many of the killers, including Jake, believe in the ideology of 50 Blessings and follow it blindly, despite the fact that they don't matter to the organization at all. They get dismissed as soon as they have served their purpose. On the other side, we have Avon, who has all the answers right in front of him, but just like the rest of the protagonists, he still can't see the full picture, so he can't make sense of it. But let's not get too excited, because everything I've just told you never happened. Jake never made it out of the building, so he never met the 50 Blessings agent to pick up the desk. Therefore, Avon never found anything in Jake's gear, and did not get to meet the cult in the abandoned 50 Blessings headquarters. 2:16 of night in October 30th at Hawaii, the Ghost Wolves are talking about their final mission coming up tomorrow. They're assigned to take over a power plant, and I like how the game mentions that the place is booby-trapped, so they can send the whole platoon in there, just in case you started to think why these four never get any backup. The colonel suddenly runs into the room wearing a leopard's face. No, not a leopard mask, a leopard face, with a strange logo of a circle with 3 lines on the forehead. The same logo that was scattered all over the levels of the first game. He starts lecturing the Ghost Wolves about how they are all animals, that they don't have free will and just follow orders. They kill because they are told to, and somewhere deep down, they follow these orders because they enjoy violence. But then he goes to bed. In the morning, the colonel tells Beard that this mission is pretty much impossible. It's way too hard to handle for 4 men and they most likely won't be coming back. But they don't have a choice. They have to follow orders. 15th scene, called Casualties, is the embodiment of pain. It's got 4 stages filled with rooms, windows, and people with guns. I died so many times off screen in Casualties that I started to do to calm myself down, got addicted to it, spent most of my money buying more, gambled to make some of it back, lost my house and a bed, and in a cold night in a dark alley, took my life. You know what could have prevented all of this? The flamethrower. The Ghost Wolves actually managed to take over the power plant, so you, Colonel. Suddenly the building begins to collapse. Barnes rushes to open the elevator, but it blows up, killing him and injuring the silent soldier. Daniels can't believe what just happened. He rushes towards Barnes' brutalized body to check on him, and it's honestly very sad to see that Daniels, who was bullying Barnes the whole game, was hurt the most with his death. There's no time to grieve. Beard carries the silent soldier into the underground tunnels. The tunnel floor is a unique section. The gameplay isn't like usual anymore. Instead, you have to find your way out in a maze with flashing lights in a limited time, while walking slower than usual because you're carrying your squad mate, like I do every time we play Rainbow Six Siege. The 12th level in the original Hotline Miami, called Trauma, also had unique gameplay. You didn't have to kill anymore, instead you just had to sneak out of the hospital. And you know, I like these levels. They're a breath of fresh air and the only times when you're accomplishing anything without killing. I just wish they made this maze a little harder. It's very short with pretty simple layout and you got way more time than you need. Wow, look at me, I've been through so much playing this game that I adapted to the difficulty. Just when the game doesn't want to be difficult, I want it to be.
This is Mistress
Denneton.
We met on Craigslist.
No talking unless I say.
Beard finds his way through the tunnels and just before they collapse makes it out alive.
My name is Bannismith. My car's broken down on me. I need,
Can you repeat that? Over.
My name is Ken. Look, we need a casevac here. I'm at 1942 North, 15528 West. And step on it, he's bleeding out. Hang in there, buddy. They'll be here real soon. No need to thank me, kid. It's on the house.
It's on the house.
All this time, he was right under our nose. This nameless soldier that never talked or interacted with anyone has always been Jacket.
You would have done the same for me, right? I think I hear the chopper coming now. Maybe I should take this.
so you don't forget who saved your ass.
We then go to 6/27 of April 3rd, 1986 in San Francisco, where we see Beard talking to the phone in his convenience store. It's safe to say that the person behind the phone is Jacket, since Beard asks him to send a copy of the picture they took together in Hawaii. Beard hears some noises outside the store and hangs up to check what's going on. Act 5 intermission starts off with A1 receiving a call.
Hello? Evan speaking.
Hi, you spoke to my mother. She told me to call you, said you wanted to talk. It's about the mass maniac, right?
Right. I didn't think you would call, to be honest. Well, if you have got time, I would love to hear your story.
Oh, I got time, alright, but it'll cost you. You see, I need a plane ticket. I know it's a lot to ask for, but I'm sure it'll be worth your while. Do we have a deal?
Well, I can't promise anything, but if your story is half as good as you say, then I'll see what I can do, okay?
Fair enough. So where do you want me to begin?
Take it from the start. I want to get the full picture.
Alright. It all started with these strange messages in my phone. At first, they were pretty straight, asking me to do things, small things, calling random numbers, leaving cryptic messages, going around town, painting these marks at a certain point.
Marks?
Yeah, a circle with 3 lines across. Anyway, I didn't do what they told me to, figured it was all a prank. After a while, messages started getting threatening. A few days passed, and one morning I woke up to find my car torched, and there was this message on my machine saying I better do what I was told or bad things would happen.
6:25 of noon in April 2nd, 1989, we cut to the caller who is Richter from the first game. Yeah, he was Rosa's son all this time, and Act 5 is just about him. Now, about those tapes. I don't want to take full credit for this because other people have talked about it online. But since Avon's meeting with Rosa takes place a long time after the events of the first game, and the fact that Jacket's answering machine was empty when he was caught, there's a good chance that these tapes belong to Jacket's answering machine. And Richter was ordered by 50 Blessings to take them out when he was sent to take out Jacket, but that's nothing more than a theory. Richter gets a call from 50 Blessings about his new task, and since his car was torched, takes off with a bus. In 17th scene called First Blood, Richter overtakes a bar from the Russian mob. Richter the Rat is the 4th returning mask from the original game, but he doesn't have his iconic silenced UZ anymore. It doesn't make sense because Richter's UZ wasn't just a feature of the mask. The character himself also used the UZ in the first game. Without his SMG, Richter plays out just like the default Richard mask, so I'm just gonna leave him right next to the thick-skinned man himself. Richter's levels are very carefully structured. Everything is positioned very strategically for you to come up with a plan. You can try as much as you want to just go in and start blasting without one, but it won't work. And the reason for that is, Richter doesn't have any experience about how to pull off these hits because he is just starting. His first scene is even called First Blood, so the game is trying to convey the feeling that he is slowly getting used to this. First Blood has 2 floors, no windows, and way too many rooms, which makes it very close encountered and harder for you to miss your hits. After very casually taking over an entire building single-handedly, Richter leaves the area. Richter returns home to find his mom sitting at the dining table.
Mom, what are you doing down here?
I was hungry, so I decided to have a snack. I can take care of myself, you know. You don't have to worry about me so much.
You know the doctor told you not to move around too much.
I don't care what the doctor said. I'm not dead yet, still got some fight left in me.
The situation of Richter's household is not good. Rosa is old and needs constant care. She can't work, and with Richter's dad gone, he needs to start thinking of a way to make some money, which he can't because he keeps getting calls from 50 Blessings. So Richter is in a choke point where every door is closed to him. 7:32 of night in April 10th, 1989, Richter gets another phone call from 50 Blessings and takes off. In 18th scene called Demolition, Richter tries to take over a warehouse, I guess? I mean, there are only boxes everywhere. Demolition in general only exists to run you through Richter's daily life and to sell the idea that this is what Richter does every day. Take care of his mom and cap some Russians, in a cycle that repeats itself. Or at least that's the message I got from this scene, because it doesn't contribute to the story in any way. It doesn't introduce any new characters or develops an existing one. It's just Richter leaves, caps Russians. That's it. Richter returns home to Rosa passed out in the bathroom. He carries her to the bedroom and wants to call the doctor, but she doesn't let him. Rosa's condition is getting worse at a much faster rate than Richter thought. And if he doesn't come up with a solution to turn their lives around soon, she won't be here anymore. 5:25 of noon in April 23rd, 1989, Richter gets another phone call from, you know, why do I even mention this every time? You already know what happens to Richter every day. In 19th scene called House Call, Richter attacks a bunch of Russian mobsters in a mansion. In House Call, improvising becomes a bit more useful. You still have to plan your approach, but you at least have a chance of staying alive if something goes wrong with it. This scene itself isn't difficult at all. It's got 2 floors with a reasonable amount of rooms and windows, and you won't be spending much time beating it. After beating House Call, we cut back to Avon, who was writing down Richter's story, because this is probably his only chance to make his book interesting. He fetches another notepad and we continue with Richter. Based on the scene dates, Richter tried to kill Jacket on June 8th of 1989. He was eventually caught and kept in custody until June 22nd of 1989, when Jacket found him in a cell and injured him. He had the choice to kill Richter, but now we know he canonically spared him, because on 20th of July in 1990, we see Richter in prison being visited by the janitors from the first game, which means that Biker also canonically chose to spare the janitors. Yeah, your choices in the original game are just as important as your choices in a Telltale game. The janitors appreciate Richter's services, but we already know that anyone who becomes a liability to 50 Blessings has to go. So one of their members in prison was tasked to take care of Richter. 20th scene called Release starts with a boss fight. This is the 3rd boss fight of the game, and I gotta admit I died way too many times here. You can't hurt him with your bare hands, so you have to avoid him. He has phases where he pushes towards you. If you just try to stall him by walking in circles, he will catch up with you because you lose distance in the corners. So to beat him, you have to avoid corners and move in more straight lines as much as you can. If you make it through 3 of his pushing phases, someone throws in a metal pipe for some reason, and then you can take him out. The prison is undergoing a huge riot and there's chaos going on inside, so this is a perfect chance for Richter to escape. As soon as you leave the yard, you can see a bunch of prisoners getting shot from off screen. First time. You have to choose between 2 paths in front of you. If you pick the bottom path, you instantly get shot. What did you expect? You just saw the other prisoners get shot from the bottom path. Did you think you have plot armor or something? You have to move towards the prison where the stages actually start. Release is very frustrating. I personally think that it's got way too many enemies to deal with. Like, you can get shot from every angle without even having the time to show proper reaction. In Release, improvising finally becomes as important as planning. You will have a lot of encounters where you need to come up with a plan on the spot. The game even visualizes this by throwing in a lot of unique weapons that you don't find in any other scene, like glass shards or toothbrushes, showing that in a heated situation, Richter can use anything as a weapon on the spot to save himself. Halfway through the scene, Richter gets his hands on a prison guard uniform and sneaks out of the prison right under the nose of the SWAT units like the Chad he is.
After that, well, there's a whole lot more to tell, really.
If I may ask, where did you go when you escaped?
I guess I might as well tell you. I went to Hawaii. You see, that's why I need you to get a plane ticket. It's not for me, it's for my mother. I'm really worried about her. She can't take care of herself. I was hoping you could get her to me.
I understand. I'm gonna have to check my bank account. I'll get the money for it one way or the other, okay? Wouldn't be right otherwise. I don't think you understand how much of a help you've been.
After the call, you can find a letter on the dining table by Sharon.
Dear Evan, I haven't heard from you in a while. I miss you. The kids miss you too. I think we can still make this work, but I can't live with a man who puts his job before his family. I still love you. You know I do. I hope you love me too. Please call me when you read this. Sharon.
What you do after reading the letter will determine Avon's ending. You have the choice to either give up writing your book and call up Sharon to fix your marriage, or ignore her letter and continue writing. For me, this was a very tough choice, and believe me, I have played every choice-based game at this point. Avon is willing to go through literally anything to finish his book because he really needs the money to provide for his family. But in the process of saving them, he's actually doing more harm than good. Should he push his luck with his family and risk losing them by continuing his book to become successful, or get back with his family and risk his life thinking about how successful he could have become if he continued his book? I chose to call up Sharon because I can always earn money, but women? Yeah, I ain't getting none of that again. Act 6, called Catastrophe, starts off too much on the right, like my man, just a little to the left please. 9:24 of night in November 18th, 1991, we finally take control of the second Russian protagonist called the Sun. The Russian mob is in a very bad state after being completely dismantled by Jacket, so the Colombians are taking over the city. The Sun suggests that they start retaking their territories with one of the gentlemen clubs, so he tells his men to bring their guns. In scene 21, called Seizure, the Sun takes over a gentleman club by himself, which makes me wonder why he even bothered telling his henchmen to bring guns. The Sun's playstyle is disappointing. All of his variations straight up copy the fans. Well, to be fair, he also gets a katana with his roll dodge, but like, man, who cares about the katana? The Sun also doesn't have the playstyle variation of Alex and Ash. That's just because he doesn't have a mentally handicapped sibling following him. Look, I know we are near the end of the game and the devs didn't want to introduce new mechanics only for a few levels, but they could have at least given him something from the original game, like Don Juan's lethal doors, or Rufus's survive one bullet, or Rick's good shot, or George's look further. I really like your character, man, but you're just so unoriginal. I'm not even gonna bother ranking your variations separately. I'm just gonna rank you entirely on D tier above Martin, because at least you manage your weight properly. There you go. That's an accurate Hotline Miami 2 playstyle tier list. You can frame it and give it to your lover for Valentine. And if they didn't like it, break up with them. Because let's be honest, who doesn't like a Hotline Miami 2 playstyle tier list as a gift? Seizure is an interesting scene. It's got 3 stages with enough rooms and windows to not break the game, but in this scene, the lights of the club also flash, which makes it harder for you to spot the enemies. It's kinda like wearing that useless mole mask in the original game that made it look like the Red Dead 2 poster. The Sun clears up the club of those pesky Colombians and bails. Back in the headquarters, the Sun wants to celebrate their successful attack, but the henchman isn't having any of it. He wants to go back home to Mary. The Sun doesn't like that much. He tells him that Mary is too good for him and soon she's gonna leave. He's a little harsh, I agree, but is he wrong though? He still offers henchmen some money to buy Mary something nice, but when you switch to henchmen, you don't have to pick it up. You can just leave. 1:27 of noon in December 7th, 1991, we see the Sun planning some kind of robbery with his men. They hit a toast and then take off to the bank in a black van. 22nd scene, called Blood Money, starts off with the mob walking into the bank like normal customers, but as soon as you click on the bag, the game suddenly shifts into Payday 2. Blood Money is another annoying scene in the game. It's got 3 stages, which is standard, but they're all way too wide with so many windows, to the point that some walls are just straight up glass. But hey, at least you got your trusty henchman to assist you. The Sun makes it into the vault only to meet his dead family.
Father? What are you doing here?
I'm not here. You know that. Then why are you here?
I don't know. I want to make you proud.
Such things don't matter. I can see you haven't changed. You're just like me. You won't get it until it's already too late.
Your father is right. You don't get it, do you? Not that it matters anymore. It's all the same in the end. And there's nothing you can do about it, is there?
But, Father...
He already told you. He's not here anymore. In fact, neither are you.
We cut to Manny Pardo at another crime scene of the Miami Mutilator. The police still haven't found much about the killer, but they're making progress. Pardo isn't of much help on the scene, so he heads back home and gets some rest.
Can't find it.
Pardo starts panicking. He can't find his revolver. He rushes to his car and drives back to the crime scene he was just at to see if he lost it over there.
Looking for this?
What are you doing here? This is a crime scene.
Well, you know what they say. Murderers always return to the scene of the crime. I guess there must be some truth to that, huh?
Right. Who are you?
You don't recognize me. We're related. Back blood, aren't we? You can as your son. You created me after all.
Give me back my gun, creep.
You want it, huh? How about a hug instead?
A movie set designer picks up Pardo and drives him to a movie scene where the police chief accuses him of being the killer? Did Richard write this part of the story? Pardo doesn't give up so easily, and in the 23rd scene called Caught, he takes on the entire police station. Caught is a scene that relies very heavily on improvising. It's got 2 stages with loads of rooms and windows filled with enemies. If you dare use guns, you have the entire Miami police force rushing at you from different directions that is just impossible to plan. If you take a look around the station, you can actually find Avon sitting in one of the rooms that you can't get in. After clearing the police station, Pardo walks outside to see cops surrounding him. He tries to trick his way out of this by claiming he's a police officer, which to be fair should work, ignoring the fact that he just demolished the entire police station.
Oh, no. You see the murders. It was just a goof. It was just for laughs, you know? Just, why aren't you laughing?
But the cops are too smart to buy it. The entire last scene was all in just Lehead. Pardo gets a call from the station asking him to come over, but he refuses to go because he's afraid that his nightmare might come true. 6/12 of afternoon in December 14th, 1991, Pardo pays a visit to the Russian mob HQ and asks to meet the son. He thinks that because he took down the Colombian ship, he might just get some protection from the mob in case his nightmare comes true, but basically gets told to f off. We take control of the son that is planning to take over the Colombian mob headquarters and completely eliminate them. And believe me, it is just as hard as it sounds like. 24th scene called Takeover is the final scene before the epilogue, and man, it will suck the soul out of you. You're gonna have to plan and improvise down to the smallest details. It's got only 3 stages, but the game throws in literally everything it's got at you. You got incredibly large areas, packed with rooms and windows, filled with armed enemies of every kind. But despite the difficulty, I don't think this scene is annoying at all. Since it's supposed to be the game's final challenge before the epilogue, it's fair for it to not be a cakewalk. The son confronts the Colombian Don, asking him to retire nicely, but he doesn't listen. This could have been a successful ending for the son, but you know him, he doesn't get it until it's too late. So 6 days later, in December 20th, 1991, we get to see the son call up the henchman to tell him the news after he left the family, but gets no response. Out of anger, he starts popping pills one after another, until he begins to lose his grip on reality. He hallucinates his own men and dogs as demons and starts slaughtering them in self-defense. This scene doesn't get an intro, but from the menu we know it's called Apocalypse. In this scene, you're gonna come across multiple boss fights, and all of them are very easy. It's a quantity over quality case. First, you're gonna meet an actual bear that charges at you if you don't attack first. Your next target is a zebra. You meet a tiger. You make your way to the rooftop where you fight a two-headed swan. And finally, the son feels a moment of peace. He banished all of the demons back to hell. The gates of heaven open up for him, and he slowly walks into the afterlife. Okay, I know you probably have no idea what just happened, but it's actually pretty simple. By checking the date of the apocalypse, we learn that it takes place at the same time as Death Wish. When the son called the henchman, he was already dead, and it was the fans on the other side of the call. The fans were attacking the Russian mob headquarters while the sun was high, and these animals he comes across are actually the fans. Eventually, the son killed Alex and Ash on the rooftop and jumped off, thinking he was gonna walk into the heaven. That dead body Pardo found while investigating investigating the headquarters after the raid was actually the son. Seeing the credits is honestly a relief. I can finally rest knowing I beat this game. But not so fast, because there is a post-credit scene. On 4:39 of noon in December 28th, 1991, we see Richter and Rosa chilling in Hawaii and watching some TV, which means that A1 actually stayed true to his word and bought Rosa that plane ticket. The TV show these two are watching changes based on the choice you made as Avon in his house. If you choose to finish his book, the TV shows him talking about the book, but if you choose to talk to Sharon, the TV will just show Ellen interviewing Martin. Suddenly, the show cuts to an emergency broadcast. During a coup d'etat, the presidents of both USA and Russia have been assassinated by a group of armed men led by a US Army general. We can assume that the general is actually the one in Beard's storyline, due to the fact that the mask he was wearing had the 50 Blessings logo. Experts are afraid that Russia may take this as an act of war, which will lead to severe consequences.
Looks like you've got yourself quite comfortable over here. You know what they say about good times, don't you?
Yeah, good times never last.
That's right. Soon this will all be over.
I had a feeling things would catch up to me. Are they on to me?
Oh no. This is much worse.
How long do I have?
You don't have much time. No one does.
Nothing I can do about it, right?
No. By now there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Alright. No need to fight then.
I'm glad you understand. Leaving this world is not as scary as it sounds.
Hawaii and Miami get nuked by Russia in response to the assassination of their president, and with that, the game ends. We get to see the aftermath of whoever was left before the nuke. Avon either having dinner with his family or writing another book to keep the success going, Pardo who barricaded his house and taken home front position expecting police to come knocking any minute, the actress girl chugging down alcohol to cope with the guilt of shooting Martin, and lastly, Jacket in his prison cell drowning in his own thoughts. When the game was released, people didn't get the point of this story being non-chronological, because you could literally just use the dates and put everything in order in like 5 minutes. And by putting them in order, you don't actually learn anything special about the story. Sure, you do learn some minor details, like how did the fans find the henchmen, or why was the sun fighting demonic animals, but you don't learn anything about the message of the story. So why were they in this weird order? Was it just for the sake of being deep? Bear with me here, because I actually learned this from one of my college classes about storytelling. I know, education actually being useful? Impossible. Actually studying in college? No thanks. ChatGPT will take care of it. Like I said at the very beginning, Hotline Miami 2's story with all of its scenes is like a movie or series played by a VHS player. And just like any show, it has a structure made of acts that each serve a purpose. And the story needs to be told with that structure, or it's gonna turn out like IcEYWaRE General. First, we have the pilot episode with Midnight Animal. A pilot episode is referred to the very first episode of a show, which is typically used to get a green light from a network to order a full season. And as we know, Midnight Animal was the demo Denethon gave the journalists to get their feedback. After that, Act 1 called Exposition is meant to introduce the characters and sets them off towards their journey, which the game does by introducing the primary characters to eventually build the rest of the storylines around them. We get to know the fans, Pardo and Jake. The characters the game introduces later on are all related to either these three storylines or the storyline of the first game. In second act called Rising, the story is supposed to build up towards climax by increasing tension, which the game does by pushing characters into conflicts that can escalate into even bigger conflicts. For example, the fans start taking on bigger targets, which eventually leads them to the henchmen, and they end up answering a call that wasn't meant for them, that sets them up for taking on their biggest target yet. In Act 3 called Climax, tension is supposed to reach its peak. In most shows, this is usually the act that the protagonist and the antagonist have a final confrontation, which the game does by pushing the protagonists into extremely difficult challenges. Beard ambushes Russians, Pardo takes on the entire Colombian ship, and the fans attack the Russian mob HQ. In Act 4 called Falling, the tension is supposed to slowly decrease and move towards the concluding stages of the story, which the game portrays by Beard accomplishing his final tasks and getting close to the end of his service, Avon finally meeting Rosa, which was helpful enough for his book, and Jake's story getting wrapped up. up. Act 5 is called Intermission. If you guys don't know what intermission means, because you actually have a good mental health, unlike me who had to study these garbage over 58 cups of coffee, an intermission is a short time period for actors to take a break in the middle of a live performance that usually lasts between 10 to 15 minutes, which makes sense because in Act 5 we follow Richter's journey that has no connection to the rest of the storylines of Wrong Number. It's like we put the actual story to pause and started watching something else.
I stand by this and whatever this is.
And finally, Act 6, called Catastrophe, is supposed to conclude the story by wrapping up all loose ends remaining in the plot, which the game does by finishing the story of Manny, Pardo, and his son, who are the only remaining protagonists. Apocalypse serves as the epilogue, and Richter in Hawaii is a post-credit scene. See? The story has to be told in this order or it wouldn't have the structure of a story. You can't have Richter chatting with Rosa and Jake dying in the other room. Now that we know the events of Hotline Miami 2 as a whole, there's only one question left. What is the message of Wrong Number? The original Hotline Miami made us question our approach towards video games, whether we enjoy violence or not, and Wrong Number is meant to complete the original. So what is it that this sequel wants us to see?
Section 4. The message of Wrong Number.
Solving the mystery of Wrong Number is a lot easier than the original Hotline Miami. You don't have to collect letters to solve a puzzle this time. All you have to do is to launch the game on hard mode.
You all came back, huh? Why? You all know how this ends, don't you?
What the hell are you blabbing about? Who are you people? Why am I here?
You're not really here, are you? Is this another dream? It's all a dream, isn't it? Enjoy it while you can. Soon you will all have to wake up.
I think I've heard enough. Hey guys, let's get out of here.
There's only one way out of this, unfortunately.
Why have you taken us here?
To tell you that it's all pointless. You are all heading the wrong way. At best, you will end up in a cemetery.
So what? I'm not scared of dying.
You don't care what happens to your friends either, do you? Keep on following in your father's footsteps. I've told you where they lead.
Look, I'm sorry for...
I appreciate it. I'm not really who you think I am. Remorse is not going to get you anywhere, I'm afraid.
You think you know everything, huh?
You I don't get. Why is it that you do the things you do?
You're just gonna sit there and judge us? Are you?
Is that what you think? You don't know who I am, do you? Fine. Have it your way.
Just who are you then?
I'm the opposite of why you are writing your book. I'm something you will never understand. Looks like it's just you and me left now.
We've met before, haven't we?
Yes, we have. I'm glad you remember. I know you didn't ask for any of this. I wish we could have met again under different circumstances.
Me too.
Wrong Number was never just a sequel designed for entertainment, and these protagonists were never meant to be our tools for fun. Instead, they were designed to make us see what Denethor wanted. Let's start with Martin Brown, because he's also the first protagonist of the game. He is the lead actor of the movie Midnight Animal. He plays the role of a brutal killer, which is different from his usual work, but you don't see him express any doubt or disgust. Instead, he's happy to be killing others. He says he always wanted to do this, which makes me believe he's representing the violent players who use the original Hotline Miami's violence as a release. These violent players use the excuse that this is just a game to avoid any judgment, same as Martin, who claims Midnight Animal is just a movie. But we all know that's besides the point. Real or not, these violent players and Martin enjoy hurting others, and if they were given the chance to do it in real life without facing any consequences, they most likely would. The game questions how far these players are willing to go in being violent by throwing in this controversial scene. What the pig butcher does to the girl here is a different type of violence. It's not gory or bloody, but it's a million times more disturbing to the player. It's meant to be a wake-up call to the violent players by holding a mirror in front of them and showing them how disgusting they look to others because of their violent nature. They can stop the sequel right there, but if they push further, eventually Richard himself confronts them. Richard tells them that if they keep this up, they will face the consequences. But the players don't care. They already know they're immune to consequences. What's the worst that can happen? Getting killed? They can just restart the level, right? No, not this time. In Final Cut, the violent players have to face the consequences. At this point, it's too late for them to change their way. The game takes away their immunity because they can no longer restart the level. Their violent nature has led them down this path and finally gave them what they had coming. After Martin, the game gets to the fans. These guys are a group of people who have a blind obsession with the jacket. They get a kick out of mimicking him, which makes them want to be just like him, without even knowing the first thing about him. Which leads me to believe they are representing the players who approached the first game looking for fun. They enjoyed playing as Jacket. To them, it was just a bit of a quote-unquote harmless fun to go around offing Russians because they never dug deeper into this game. They bought into Wrong Number expecting it to be just as fun as the original game, and at first it was. The game kept throwing in the most action-packed scenes at the fans that made killing Russians enjoyable. So the players pushed through the levels thinking they're having some more of that harmless fun from the original game. Wrong Number tried to warn them, but they were too hyped to pay attention, so the game itself had to stop them. Wrong Number was not supposed to be fun. It was supposed to open the eyes of the players. But these players refused the offer because they were afraid that it would take all the fun away. So Wrong Number crossed them off, specifically using Russians, the kind of enemies that these players were killing without a care in the world in the first game, in order to show them that the fun they had is over. The direct opposite of the fans is Avon Wright, a journalist writing a book about the 1989 killings in Miami. Avon is willing to go through literally anything thrown at his way without even paying it any attention. He doesn't seem to notice that he's hurting or killing so many people for the sake of his book, which makes me believe that he represents the players that were obsessed with the lore of the original Hotline Miami and didn't care about the gameplay. They seem to turn a blind eye on all of the killings they have to get through to solve the mystery. Just like how Avon doesn't fit with the rest of the characters at the bar of the broken heroes, players obsessed with the lore also don't fit in with the rest of the fanbase, because there is no intention of harming others behind their actions. They don't enjoy hurting others, and they'll even avoid it most of the time because all they want is answers that Avon doesn't necessarily need to get violent to get. However, in the process of uncovering the truth, the players sink in the gameplay more and more. Wider levels with stronger enemies might eventually make them resort to violence, and at the very end, the game asks these players if they are willing to stay true to their morals and change their ways by giving up the book, or will they keep going down the same path and eventually turn out to be just like the rest of the fanbase, a group of violent people that can get as violent as someone like Jake. Jake is a man blinded by patriotism. Given that 50 Blessings is in line with his goals, he buys into their ideology to get rid of Russians no matter what it takes. Jake is clearly representing players who genuinely believed what they did to Russians was justified, while ignoring the brutal and inhumane nature of their methods. He's a perfect example of the type of agents 50 Blessings is looking for. Patriotic people who will go through anything to free America from Russians. All he knows is that he will receive phone calls and he has to obey them, which is perfectly fine with him because he doesn't care about anything but hurting Russians. His hatred eventually leads him to discover the truth behind 50 Blessings, which at the time made him excited only because he felt a sense of belonging. Knowing who was behind the phone calls was never Jake's priority, so he never realized how important this information is, and at the end, his hatred for Russians leads him to his demise. The direct opposite of Jake is Beard. He's a soldier who was drafted for war and has to kill Russians against his own will. It's not in his nature to hurt others. He even expresses how much he dislikes using guns and wants a job that doesn't involve them. But he doesn't have a choice and has to answer the call of duty. At the beginning of his campaign, Beard claims checkpoints and hunts enemies with the goal of protecting his country. But over time, he becomes more and more worn out and only accomplishes his missions so that he gets closer to going home. It's safe to say that Beard is a man who had a goal but slowly grew tired of it. And because of this, I believe Beard is supposed to be representing Denaton themselves, Jonathan Soderstrom and Dennis Vedin. Making more Hotline Miami was always on their list, but the pressure from the community made it a lot harder for them to pull it off. As we discussed before, the community had expectations that according to the devs was ridiculous, and trying to meet them made the development of this sequel that was already hard even harder. What breaks my heart is that despite how much love and care was put into this game, the devs received a lot of hate after release.
It was horrible. Yeah, it was horrible. I think we were both quite surprised because we were very happy with the game, and at least I felt like if people enjoyed the first game, they would love this game. But that was not the case. So I think it was kind of a surprise to us, and also like it was very harsh language. I mean, I'm not against people not liking the game for different reasons. I mean, it's not a game for everyone, and it does a lot of things different from the first game, which was like the point. But if you like, I can see that people like the first game but doesn't like the second game because they're more like forced to play in different ways, or maybe it's too much story.
So not only were they not praised for their hard work, they were actually bashed and bullied. Just like how passionate Beard was to serve his country at the beginning, the devs originally did have a lot of ambition and love for this project. But over time, because of the unpredictable circumstances, they grew distant with their own creation, to the point of just wanting to get done with the franchise and moving on. But not without acknowledging how good their games are first, by using Manny Pardo. This guy is the vaguest character of the bunch, to the point that even Richard himself doesn't know why he kills. Manny Pardo is actually based on a real-life serial killer with the same name, but if I mention him when introducing him, it would ruin the mystery. Manny Pardo is a detective pretending to investigate a serial killer called the Miami Mutilator, when in reality, he is the Miami Mutilator. Pardo was always jealous of the attention and fame that Jacket had. He wanted to be famous just like him, so he started doing what he believed Jacket did in order to attract attention. He killed, then covered up after himself to get the word about the Miami Mutilator out, but never actually faced any consequence. Even with all of his killings, the Miami Mutilator wasn't interesting to the press at all. Everyone was concerned about the fans. Pardo even tried to persuade Avon into writing about the Miami Mutilator as a last resort, but that didn't work either. After seeing the fans on the news, he couldn't stand the fact that yet another group of killers managed to become famous, but he is still just some guy. He tried to frame the fans by planting the wallet of one of his victims in Alex and Ash's house, but before that could pay off, the fans raided the Russian mob HQ and got themselves killed. And Pardo put the last nail on their coffin by shooting Tony. With the fans gone, Pardo was sure that he will get the attention he always wanted, but maybe too much of it, to the point that he might actually get caught. So he started to panic, and in a nightmare, his dream to become famous portrayed itself as a movie with a twist that he didn't see coming. Pardo dreamt about Avon figuring out his secret identity and turning him in. So he was caught at the end of the movie, and this made him paranoid, so much that he was convinced that it was already way too late to escape. So he held a home front position in front of his door, expecting cops to come knocking any minute, ultimately losing his career as a respectful officer because of his obsession with fame. This entire storyline is a savage roast to all of Hotline Miami ripoffs. When other developers saw the success of the original Hotline Miami, they wanted to become famous just like them, so they made their own Hotline Miamis that's just awful. These games try to replicate what Hotline Miami was only because of the fame, without any understanding of what even makes this game special. And at the end, not only did they not become Hotline Miami, they also lost their chance to become something unique for themselves. All of these storylines are supposed to represent a demographic, but what about Richter? I mean, he's a character introduced near the end of the game, so what's the point of his storyline? Well, this one is actually really sad. Richter's character was originally not in the game. He was added on the very last minute because throughout the development of Wrong Number, Jonathan Soderstrom unfortunately lost his mother. But instead of becoming angry or depressed, he turned the love he had for his mother into this beautiful storyline, which was done in intermission since it wasn't planned or related to the rest of the storylines. We get to see Richter do whatever it takes to protect and help his mother. Even if it means he has to kill, that's not a big deal for him. Richter is the only protagonist that doesn't appear in the Bar of the Broken Heroes, because he's the only one of them who never broke. Even with everything he went through, he always stayed true to his goal to help his mother, which I believe represents how strong Jonathan's love for his mother was, showing no matter what happens, nothing can break the bond they had. And in the end, we get to see Richter with his mother in a beautiful shore in Hawaii that I personally think is the visualization of how Jonathan wishes to see her again in the afterlife. On a bit of an unrelated note, Richter's implementation wasn't the first time a tragic event sparked a shift in the narration of the Hotline Miami games. The relationship between Jacket and his girlfriend was also implemented because of the tough breakup Dennis was going through during the development of the original Hotline Miami.
I was super depressed during the first game because of my breakup, which was really rough on me. So a lot of that is in the game, like the whole situation with Jacket and the girl. It's kind of based around that. And I actually made a lot of the sprites in a, what's it called?
Institutionalized?
Yeah, an award. So I wasn't allowed to go out for 2 weeks.
It's really interesting that I was also going through a very tough breakup when making the video on the first game. So a bit of an advice, if you're in a lovely relationship, stay away from Hotline Miami. I think we have talked about the so-called heroes of the story enough. Let's talk about the people we originally believed to be the villains, the Russian mobsters. The Russian characters aren't meant to represent any demographic. They exist to humanize the AI of the original Hotline Miami and make you feel a sense of guilt for disposing them so nonchalantly. While playing the first game, all you knew was that the Russians had to go one way or another, and the pain you caused these mobsters was the least of your concern. The players who at least felt like they needed to justify their killings used the excuse that these people are all scum. They hurt, kill, and steal from whoever they want, and someone has to put a stop to it. But in Wrong Number, we get to see a more personal layer of their lives. The henchman feels love for Marie and guilt for completing hits, to the point that he decides to quit the mob. The son misses his family and is willing to go through whatever it takes to make them proud. These are all human desires, which we didn't see in the original game because we never wanted to. We wanted to see them as scum, because otherwise we would have realized that even though they are criminals and need to be stopped, they are still human, and our violent methods to stop them is too much. The last person sitting on the table is Richter himself. There are lots of theories about who this guy really is. Some believe he is a bad omen. Some think he's the representation of death itself. Others think he is the bigger picture the players are meant to see. But I have another idea. In the original Hotline Miami, Richter represented Jacket's own psyche that was trying to help him remember what led to this point in his life. The Richter inside Jacket's head never made it into the Wrong Number. The Richter, the characters of Wrong Number C, is actually represented Jacket. All of these characters know about Jacket, and their lives were affected by his actions, so Jacket is a prominent figure in all of their lives. They look at him and see where his goals led him, and start to doubt if their choices will ever get them where they want to go. Whenever they begin to doubt themselves, Richard, or in this case Jacket, shows up to warn them about the consequences of their actions. So Richard, Jacket, Chicken, Rooster, whatever you want to call him, is meant to be the representation of the doubts and insecurities of the Wrong Number protagonists. All of these people around the table still form only a small portion of the bigger picture. Their actions combined with everyone else in the frame led to the nuking of Miami and Hawaii. Violence escalated into more violence, and eventually the characters and everyone else in the picture went too far, and everything escalated into a point of no return. There's nothing they can do about it now except to sit and watch the end, all because they failed to see the message of the game, that violence only breeds violence. If you beat the game on hard mode, you get to see a poem on the credits called "For the Dear Old Flag I Die." The poem is from the perspective of a drummer boy that gets injured during the Battle of the Gettysburg, singing to his mother before he dies. It was originally a patriotic song to respect the fallen soldiers, but in the context of Hotline Miami 2, it serves to show you the message that the franchise wants you to see. What is important at the moment of this poem is that this boy is dying. He will never get to go back home and see his mother again, but the boy himself doesn't care at all. All he cares about is that there is a country that he is fighting for, without even noticing that he means nothing to this country. They put him in the front line to die, just like how the protagonists of Hotline Miami fail to see that the goal they are fighting for will only lead to more and more violence that results in nothing but death and destruction, and eventually consumes themselves.
Section 5. The End of Hotline Miami.
What a journey. You know, I started Hotline Miami because I saw the funny chicken man in Payday 2, but now I'm doubting all of my choices. What if I do like hurting other people? I guess I'll just hurt Batwoman fans.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
It's honestly really sad to see this franchise come to an end. And no, there will never be a Hotline Miami 3. Because 1, there isn't a Miami left to have a hotline. 2, we already know why there should never be a third game in any franchise. And 3, the devs confirmed it. The whole reason they even implemented the level editor section was for the players to create their own Hotline Miami 3. If you made it this far, that means you liked the video. Or maybe you were just doing something else and playing this in the background. Regardless, please subscribe. I need money to buy nitro for my Discord kitten. And for now, let's say our goodbyes to Hotline Miami. Oh wait, is that costume made levels?